The Xirak overseer stood still, staring at the screen in front of him. A signal, human-made. From Forge-9, he hissed in disbelief. Impossible. Humans were supposed to be broken. Weak slaves, nothing more. And yet someone had spoken. He reached for the console to trace the signal's source. Then everything went dark. The lights in the room flickered once, and the ship exploded. Below, the blast lit up the sky over Forge-9. A massive fireball stretched into the clouds. Human eyes looked up from the ruins and saw hope written in flames. In the underground command room. Trin slammed her fist on the table and grinned. It worked. Commander Eli Voss nodded. His jaw was tight, but his eyes showed pride. 1. EMP mine. 1 overseer down. That's a message. They had tested the first of their new weapons. Crude hand-built devices made from stolen Xirak power cores and scrap metal. Layla had designed it in secret, hiding her blueprints in a hollow-doubt. Pipe. Now, it had taken out a command ship. Eli turned to Nico. How's the patrol grid? Nico checked his screen. Their search pattern changed. They're cautious now, pulling back in sectors 4 and 5. They're scared, Layla said. Not scared, Eli replied. Alert. He stepped to the center of the room and looked at the ragged fighters around him. Listen up. We tested the weapon. Now we test the people. Spread the word to all cell leaders. We strike tomorrow. They have small teams. Sabotage, nothing beget. We hit their power conduits, their scanners, their patrol routes. He pointed upward. They think we're scattered, disorganized. Let's show them what fire looks like when it spreads. The fighters nodded, silent, steady. Outside, the ruins of Forge-9 came alive. That night, 5 human cells moved through tunnels, sewer grates, and supply shafts. At Tower 6, a pair of resistance fighters placed an EMP mine on the main generator. The blast took out all lights in the west zone for 3 hours at Dock 3B. Layla herself led a team under the landing pads. They rerouted coolant lines, causing a fuel leak that burned through 3 alien ships and in the food distribution warehouse. Maya watched from the shadows as her father now recovered and limping cut cables that disabled the Xirak surveillance. Drones. The humans were striking back, but not everything went smoothly. In Sector 12, one of the sabotage teams was ambushed. A human fighter Daru, age 19, panicked. He tried to escape, but was caught and dragged before Overseer Razik. The reptilian commander stared down at the bloodied boy. You have fire, Razik said. But fire without control is just smoke. Then he snapped his claws, and Daru was gone. The next day, Eli received the news. A small package was left near the north tunnel. Inside was Daru's necklace, and a message carved into a metal plate. Submit or be extinguished. Eli read it twice, then crushed it in his hand. No. More fear, he said. We push harder. He looked around at the others. They sent us a message. Now we send one back. The resistance moved again faster, louder. This time, they hit a power station. Layla's team planted for charges and escaped moments before the station exploded. The shockwave cracked windows 2 sectors away. Still, not every mission was clean. In the middle of the chaos, a message came in from a hidden channel one only Eli and Nico knew. The code was old. Earth's military encryption? Nico frowned. Only our top units used this during the war. It's from inside, Eli said. Someone knows too much. They decoded the message. Caution, there's a leak. One of your own talks to the Xirak. Eli's heart dropped. A traitor. Inside the resistance. He looked around the room. Could it be someone in this very chamber? But there was no time to hunt for them now. The rebellion was moving too fast. He handed Nico the coded message. Start tracking transmissions, quietly. That evening, Layla approached Eli while checking a power node. I've been thinking, she said. Dangerous, Eli replied with a small smile. She smiled back, then grew serious. The factory lines. They still work, the ones near the old mines. Eli raised an eyebrow. And if we can steal enough power cores, we can make weapons. Real ones, not just bombs. Rifles, armor, even signal jammers. Eli thought for a moment. How many cores? 30, maybe 40. That's suicide, Nico said from behind them. No, Layla said. It's risk, but with reward. Eli nodded. Then we do it. They planned fast. Teams would split. Half would continue sabotage. The others would go into the core. Vault under Factory 6. Maya, who had been quietly listening, stepped forward. I want to help. Layla smiled gently. You are helping. I can fit in the vents, Maya said. I can watch. Tell you when guards change. You said it yourself. Big plans need small eyes. Eli looked at her for a long moment. All right, but you follow orders. Always. Maya nodded quickly. The mission began before sunrise. Factory 6 stood like a skeleton in the dust. Once a place where human slaves built warships, now it was mostly quiet. But still guarded, Maya crawled through the overhead vents. She watched the guards rotate, counted their steps. She whispered updates through her tiny comlink. 2 guards. West door. 1 is sleeping. Now. Go now. Layla's team moved like shadows. They entered the lower level and broke into the vault room. The glow of blue Xirak power cores lit the dark chamber like fireflies. Layla's eyes widened. Can build so much with this, they loaded as many as they could into bags and crates. But as they turned to leave, alarms screamed through the halls. A trap, we've been made.
Someone yelled.
Go! Eli shouted. The resistance team ran through back corridors as automated. Defenses activated. Turrets popped from walls. Lasers cut the air. 1 fighter fell, and another. Eli and Layla barely escaped through the emergency hatch, dragging the last. Crate between them. Later in the underground base, they took count for dead. It's missing. But they had the cores. Layla opened a crate and touched one carefully. This will change everything, Eli nodded. We lost good people today. But their deaths won't be wasted. In a shadowed corner of the base, Nico approached quietly. I traced the leak, whispered to Eli. It was one of our food runners, Jarrell. He sent location data to the Xirak yesterday. Eli's eyes went cold. Bring him to me. Found Jarrell in a supply room, packing a bag. He looked up and saw Eli. I did what I had to, Jarrell said. You think we can win? We're ants playing with matches? Eli didn't answer. He walked forward, took the bag, and looked Jarrell in the eyes. Then he spoke quietly. You gave them our people. Jarrell said nothing. A moment later, he was gone. From the camp, no one ever saw him again. That night, Eli stood with Layla and Maya near the central fire, the stars above. Forge 9 were hidden behind smoke, but hope burned below. The ember is lit, Layla said. Eli nodded. Now we make it spread. Maya looked up. What happens next? Eli's voice was low and steady. We take the factories. It's deep below the surface of Forge 9.
No.
The first human weapons since the fall of Earth began to take shape. The ember had become a spark, and the fire was coming. The hum of the factory had never stopped until now. Forge 9 was built to run forever. Machines clanked, sparks flew, and steel pressed day and night without pause. But on this morning, something was wrong. The power lines buzzed once, then dashed silence, towering. Conveyor arms froze mid-motion. Automated loaders jerked, sputtered, then collapsed. Entire assembly lines stopped in place like statues. Inside the Xirak control center, alarms began to flash. What is this? Hissed Overseer Razik. His claws slammed down on the console. The screen showed red error codes flashing across all major systems. No life signs in control. Sector Gamma. Beta's gone dark too. He turned to his lieutenant. Humans. Them, but how? Razik raised a claw and sliced the air. I don't care how. Find them. Burn every tunnel, every vent. Outside, in the chaos of the stopped machines, a Xirak patrol unit moved toward the central grid station. A loud click. Then a pulse of blue light flashed, boom. EMP mines exploded in the walls. Xirak bodies hit the floor. Sparks sprayed from open. Panels and systems across the entire western quadrant shut down in a chain reaction, deep underground. Commander Eli Voss watched the collapse unfold on a stolen Xirak display. "That's it," he said quietly. "We broke their heart." Layla Trin stood beside him, hands shaking with adrenaline. "We just stopped a planet," she whispered. The rest of the resistance base was buzzing with activity. Fighters returned from sabotage runs, laughing, limping, some bleeding but alive. They had just pulled off the biggest hit of the rebellion so far, more than 60% of Forgeneens. Power grid was now offline. The Xirak wouldn't be able to repair it quickly, and for once, it was the humans who controlled the pace of war. But victory came with a price, Eli, Nico said, stepping forward. His voice was low. "We lost Cell 12. Eli's face went. "Still, all of them. 10 fighters. They hit the coolant pipes near Reactor 3. Got ambushed." Layla bit her lip. "That's where Daru's older brother was." Eli closed his eyes. "We need to honor them. Already engraved their names," Nico said. "But there's more." So the Xirak broadcasted something. He held out a small HOLO pad. Eli tapped it, and an image played. A captured human fighter barely alive was dragged through a square. Xirak soldiers surrounded him. A loud alien voice boomed in translation. "For every spark you light, we will return ash. Surrender, and we will end the pain." Then the screen went black. Eli said nothing. Just handed the pad back. "We're past pain." Turned to the room. "Ready Phase 2. The Resistance had never dreamed of reaching this far. But now, the power shift was real. Layla's team began moving stolen power cores to hidden workshops. Within hours, crude weapons began to form pulse rifles made from factory scraps, magnetic grenades powered by mini-reactors, and armor suits strong enough to deflect a Xirak strike. Even the children helped. Maya and others sorted tools, passed parts, learned how to repair wires and reload batteries. "Can I carry one?" Maya asked Layla, pointing at the smallest pulse pistol. Layla smiled. "When you're 12? Maya frowned. "That's forever." "Oh, way good," Eli said, walking past. "The longer you don't need to shoot, the better." But deep down, they all knew she might need it sooner. As the humans prepared for the next wave, storm was brewing, high above Forge 9. The Xirak Emperor himself received word of the blackout. He stared through a screen at a live feed of the dark factory planet. "They dare," he whispered. "They forget their place." He turned to his general. "Send the worm." The worm wasn't a ship. It was worse. A siege crawler 2 miles long, 10 stories high, designed to crush rebellion. Through fear alone, it moved slowly but burned everything in its path. 2 days later, the ground began to shake. Eli, Layla, and Maya stood on the upper level of their lookout post as the first tremor hit. Maya's voice was a whisper. "Is it an earthquake?" Eli said, "It's them." The crawler moved through Sector 3 like a beast from a nightmare. Giant plasma cannons fired into buildings still full of sleeping refugees. Fire spread in all directions. Resistance fighters scrambled to respond. Rocket launchers barely scratched the crawler's armor. Layla yelled over the "Comes we need." "A distraction, or it'll reach the tunnel systems." Eli thought fast. "Nico, get the core loader bots. Rig them with explosives. Aim them straight at the crawler. What if they shoot them down? Then we'll be out of options." In the underground bay, human techs wired for bots with fuel tanks and plasma charges. One by one, the bots rolled out onto the surface. Eli watched through his scope as the crawler locked onto them. "They're not shooting. I think they're empty," Layla said. "Come on, just a little closer." Boom, 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 dot. One by one, the bots exploded against the crawler's underside. Smoke covered the crawler like a curtain. But when the wind cleared, the crawler was still moving. "Damage?" Eli asked. Layla shook her head, slowed it, didn't stop it. Suddenly a new voice came over the comms. It was scratchy, unregistered. "This is Cell 8. We've got a heavy rig nearby." "We can ram it," Eli responded quickly. "That's suicide." A pause. We know. Before Eli could stop them, the rig roared to life. A massive mining truck, welded with extra steel, charged toward the crawler's side. Eli saw the name on the truck's side, DARU. Inside the rig, Daru's older brother gripped the wheel. He said nothing, just stared straight ahead. The impact was huge. The crawler buckled. One of its legs snapped, tilted to the side, and then fell. Smoke and dust swallowed everything. When it cleared, the crawler was dead, but so was the rig team. Silence fell across the resistance base, then cheering not. Wild joy but relief, strength, unity. The machines had stopped. The monster was down, and the humans were still standing. Later that night, Eli lit a torch near the central fire pit. One by one, resistance fighters came forward and placed metal tags into the flame names of those lost in the crawler fight. Maya stood beside her father, who now walked with a cane. "Why do we burn the names?" she asked. "To give them light in the dark," he said softly. Layla stood with Eli in the shadows. "We lost too many," she whispered. Eli nodded, "but we showed them something." "This isn't a revolt anymore. What is it then?" Eli looked. Up at the stars, a war. And far above Forge 9, in deep space, the human transbeacon repeated Eli's original message on a loop. Somewhere out there, someone had started listening, and they were coming. The sky above Forge 9 turned red, not because of sunlight. There was none on this cursed factory planet, but because of the fire. A pillar of black smoke rose from Sector 7, where the Resistance had just done the unthinkable. They blew up an entire foundry district. The Xirak called it Forge Core Theta, a massive industrial heart that melted raw ore, shaped alien weapons, and kept the war machines running. Now, 'twas Ashdot Commander Eli Voss stood on a ridge, looking down at the destruction. Heat from the blast still shimmered in the air. Metal warped. Buildings collapsed inward like dying beasts behind him. Layla Trin's voice crackled over the confirming Forge Core Theta is offline. Permanently. Eli didn't smile. "This will hurt them," he said, "but it won't stop them."
Ow.
Hundreds of resistance fighters regrouped in the tunnels, covered in soot and sweat. They were tired, hungry, some wounded, but their eyes still burned. The resistance had grown fast. Too fast in the last 2 weeks, word had spread. Humans hiding in dead sectors and collapsed mining shafts and old Xirak transport crates all began to emerge. They joined the fight, but with numbers came risk. The Xirak had started hunting with more precision, smaller, smarter teams, and one of them had hit a supply route last night. 3 resistance engineers died, including the only one who knew how to repair Allah's new signal jammer. Eli gathered his top fighters in a dark command chamber beneath the rubble. "We just took away their factory," he said. "Now they'll throw everything at us." Nico tapped on his datapad. Satellite scans show enemy dropships rerouting to the west sector. "They're moving fast." "Defensive?" Slayla asked. "No, sweeping," Nico replied. "They want to clear out humans zone by zone." "We can't survive a sweep," Layla said. "Not with our people scattered," Eli nodded. "Then we stop the sweep before it begins." He tapped a map on the table. "The only way they can move that fast is through the McGrail system. They've got a central hub here, Transit Node 7. Layla's eyes widened. "That's deep in Xirak territory." "Exactly," Eli said. "They won't expect it." 8. Beat of silence. Then Nico chuckled dryly. "You're insane," maybe Eli said. "But if we hit the rail hub, we trap half their forces behind their own lines." "I'll go," Layla said without hesitation. Eli looked at her. "Sure?" She smiled grimly. "I built bombs before I built radios." 2 nights later, strike team moved under cover of darkness. It was a small group, just 5 fighters. Layla, Nico, 2 scouts, and Eli himself. They crawled through old sewage tunnels and ancient ducts, so tight they had to pull gear behind them on ropes. By the time they reached Node 7, the place was lit like a fortress. Alien guards marched in perfect patterns. The Magral tower pulsed with power, feeding energy into armored carriers that waited to transport troops. Layla whispered, "If we can blow the main power coil, it'll fry every rail line in this half of the planet." "Do it," Eli said. "We'll cover you." They split. Layla and one scout slipped into the maintenance hatch, tools in hand. Eli, Nico, and the other scout took position in the shadows behind a ridge. 5 minutes. Layla whispered over Psalm, but things didn't go to plan. At minute 4, the scout near Layla triggered a motion sensor. A high-pitched alien alarm screamed into the air. "Go loud," Eli shouted. He and Nico opened fire with stolen Xirak rifles. Bright blue energy blasts lit up the dark platform. Guards returned. Fire, ducking behind crates and pylons. Inside the power room, Layla worked fast. 30 seconds. She called out, fingers flying over the controls. Sparks flew as she hot-wired the alien wiring. A red light blinked on the panel. Then, boom. The explosion lit up the rail hub like a second sunrise. The blast shockwave knocked Eli and Nico flat. The Magrail tower collapsed in a rain of steel and flame. All across the region, the Magrail lines shut down. Power coils melted. Command signals dropped. The Xirak sweep halted, but not everyone made it out. One scout was vaporized in the blast. Layla limped away with burns on her arm. They returned to base as heroes, but celebration didn't last long. That same night, Eli called a private meeting with Nico. "We have a problem," he said. Nico raised an eyebrow. "More than usual." Lee handed him a data chip. "Maya gave this to me." "The kid." She found it near the body of a dead Xirak scout. "It contains partial recordings of our raid. They were watching us closer than we thought." Nico frowned. "You think someone tipped them off again?" Eli nodded. "Someone knew we were going to hit the Magrail. I thought we handled the last traitor. Maybe there's another." Silence hung in the air. Then Eli leaned forward. "Want you to build a test. A false plan. Something big. Something tempting. And watch who leaks it." "Exactly." While Nico worked on the bait, Layla returned to the foundry ruins. There, with a team of engineers, she started building something new. A signal amplifier. "If this works," she told her crew, "we can talk to Earth." The amplifier would piggyback off the old beacon and send a burst transmission beyond Xirak-controlled space. If any human fleet, outpost, or rogue AI still lived, they'd hear it, but building it meant they'd need to stay exposed. And the Xirak weren't quiet anymore. After the Magrail destruction, Razik deployed the Scorch Team's special units, trained to destroy everything and everyone. They moved through districts like death itself, setting fire to shelters and collapsing tunnels behind them. Maya and her father barely escaped from Sector 12 before it was turned to glass. Inside the command center, Layla stared at the flames in the distance. "If they keep this up," she said softly, "there won't be anything left to save." Eli walked beside her. "Then we hit them harder. We give them no choice but to pull back." He looked out over the growing camp of humans, fighters, families, even some former slaves from other species who had joined the cause. "This planet was their forge," Eli said. "Now it's their funeral pyre." And high above the beacon, glowed bright. The signal amplifier crackled once.
"Now," Layla gasped.
"We've got bounce back." Eli leaned in. "What does that mean?" Layla's eyes were wide. "Someone heard us." A pause. Then, through the static, a message played. Just 6 words. "Human forces, inbound. Hold the fire." Eli's voice dropped to a whisper. "We're not alone." And far beyond the stars, the fire was spreading. The ground shook with every footstep of the alien patrol. Dust fell from the cracked ceiling of the ruined shelter, and the little girl held her breath. Her name was Maya. She was only 9 years old. Her small fingers clutched the hand of her father, buried beneath rubble. He was barely conscious, but his whisper cut through the fear. They think we're broken, he said. But we're just waking up. Outside, armored boots slammed the ground in rhythm. The Xirak soldiers were searching for survivors again, not to help, never to help. They wanted to make sure no humans were alive. No one left to rebel. The firestorm had come without warning. Hours ago, the sky over Forge 9 turned black as Xirak strike ships bombarded the human quarter. No one knew why. Maybe someone had spoken out. Maybe the Xirak just wanted to remind everyone who ruled, but not everyone had died. And some were ready to fight back. Commander Eli Voss crawled through a maintenance tunnel, 3 levels below the surface. His uniform was torn. His hands were scraped raw from the jagged metal walls. He'd once led Earth's 7th Drop Battalion. Now he was covered in ash, hiding like a rat under a factory planet owned by monsters. He stopped when he reached a sealed panel. His knuckles tapped out a code 3 short, 2 long, 1 short. Silence, then a click. The panel hissed open. A hand grabbed his arm and pulled him inside. "Commander," whispered a voice. It was Nico, a former tech sergeant, thin, wiry, with a scar across his cheek. "We've got 3 safe houses left. The rest are gone." Eli nodded grimly. "And the survivors?" Nico's face went tight. "Maybe 40, maybe less." Eli leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. He had planned this rebellion for 2 years. Moved pieces like a chess master. Waited. Watched. But today, Xirak had struck first. "We moved to Site Red. Regroup there. We're losing people, sir." Eli's eyes narrowed. Up above, Xirak dropships hovered like shadows in the dark sky. Their searchlights burned through ruins, scanning for human heat signatures. Inside one of the ships, Commander Rozek watched the screens. His face was reptilian, cold, and without emotion. Sector 7 cleared. "No life signs," reported his drone officer. Razek hissed. "Keep looking. Humans are like fungus. You miss one spore, and they grow back." He turned away, never noticing the small surveillance bug clinging to the underside of the control console. It blinked red once, then transmitted deep inside the old storage tunnels. Layla Trin adjusted her makeshift receiver. Sparks danced as she soldered wires onto the scavenged panel. She was only 22, but she was already the best engineer left in the human ranks. "Their patrols are slowing," she said. "They think they got everyone." Eli stepped into the chamber. "Good. That means they'll relax." Layla looked up. Her face was covered in grease, but her eyes burned bright. "We're not ready for a full strike, Eli. We're not striking." He held up a small metal object covered in dust. "A relic. We're sending a message." Layla stared. "That's an Earth transbeacon. One of the old ones. Still works." She swallowed. "To who?" Eli looked her dead in the eye. "Whoever's still listening." Meanwhile, Maya was still in the rubble with her father. His breathing was shallow. She wiped the dust from his face and whispered, "They're gone now." The noise stopped. He tried to sit up but groaned. "Don't move," she said. "I'll find help." She squeezed through a crack in the rubble and crept outside. The world was smoke and fire. Half the buildings were gone. Bodies, human and alien, lay in the streets. The stench made her gag, but she kept going. Down an alley, she saw a group of humans in torn uniforms. One of them had a red armband. Had seen those before? Resistance fighters. Maya ran to them. "Please, my dad's trapped. He's alive." They turned. One of them knelt beside her. "Where?" She pointed. "By the north wall, under a broken roof." The fighters stood and gave a signal. 3 of them followed Maya back. When they arrived, her father was unconscious. One of the rebels checked his pulse. "He's still alive. We need to move him fast." They lifted him out. Maya followed, silent but strong. She didn't cry. Not yet. In the hidden command room below Forge 9, Eli activated the beacon. Lights flickered. A faint hum filled the space. "Signal's weak," Layla said, "but it's pushing through the interference." Eli tapped the console. Then he spoke. "This is Commander Eli Voss, Forge 9 Resistance. We're still here, The Xirak think we're beaten. They're wrong. They enslaved us, killed our people, burned our homes. But they left one thing alive. Hope. He paused. We don't ask for rescue. We ask for fire. Send weapons, data, anything, because this is the start. The ashes of Forge 9 will become the soil of their grave. He ended the transmission. Silence filled the room. Then Nico stepped forward. If they catch that signal, they'll come harder, Eli said, and we'll be ready. That night, Maya sat near a fire with the resistance. Her father was resting nearby, bandaged and breathing. Are you fighters? She asked. One of them nodded. I want to be one too, she said. You're too young, someone said gently. Maya shook her head. They called us slaves. I want them to see we're not. In orbit, the beacon's signal drifted through space, weak but clear. And far, far away beyond the Xirak borders, a human listening station picked it up. The operator blinked. Sir. He said to the general behind him, you need to hear this. The message played again. We don't ask for rescue. We ask for fire. The general stared at the screen. Get me high command now. Back on Forge 9, Eli stood on a high ledge overlooking a tunnel full of sleeping fighters. Wounded civilians and children like Maya. He knew the war had truly begun. They had no fleets, no armies, no real weapons, but they had each other, and they had fire. The Xirak had made one mistake. They'd left humans alive, and now the galaxy would remember why that was a mistake. The night was quiet, but beneath the surface the fire was growing. Space cracked open above Forge 9. A tear of blue light shimmered, and the Xirak flagship dropped out of warp. The Girthel Dominion-class dreadnought 3 kilometers long, covered in jagged plasma turrets, cast a black shadow over the ruined planet. The Resistance saw it from the surface. Maya stood on a ridge near the old Cums Tower, holding her father's hand. What's that? She asked. Her father's face went pale. That's death. It's in the underground command center. Alarms. Screamed Layla. Trin stared at the display. That's not a patrol ship. That's a fleet killer. Commander Eli Voss watched in silence as multiple enemy vessels warped in behind the dreadnought. The signal they'd received, human forces inbound, had barely been decrypted. And now the Xirak were moving to end it all before help could arrive. Can we stop it? Nico asked quietly. Eli answered with one word. No. Dreadnought began broadcasting on all human channels. A cold, inhuman voice filled every speaker, every broken screen, every stolen Xirak helmet. You have lit fires in the dark. We are here to put them out. Surrender now. There will be no mercy. Layla slammed her fist on the console. We can't let that ship stay in orbit. If they launch a full strike, we're gone. Eli turned. To her, then we don't let it stay. A mad plan began to form, one only the desperate would even consider. There was a half-repaired Xirak battleship in Hangar 12. It had crash-landed weeks ago. Most of its systems were fried, but the core was intact. Layla had wanted to strip it for parts. Eli had told her to leave it untouched. Now it would be their way up. He called the fighters together. We're going up, Eli said. We take their flagship, or we all burn. Shock hit the room, then silence, then nods. No one questioned it. They were far past reason. That night, the hangar came alive. Engineers worked without sleep. Maya helped load supplies. Layla rewired the ship's nav system. Nico reprogrammed the weapons. Eli studied stolen maps of the dreadnought's interior. By dawn, the ship was ready. It wasn't pretty, but it could fly. They called it Ashfall. It rose through the smog like a ghost, cloaked in Forge 9's smoke and heat. The Xirak didn't fire right away. They saw the old transponder signal, believing it to be one of their own returning from patrol. It bought the humans 30 seconds. Just enough. Inside Ashfall, Layla whispered, almost in range. Eli stood at the front, eyes locked on the growing shadow of the dreadnought. Steady. Steady. Then the dreadnought's scans lit up red. They know, Nico said. Ramming speed? Eli shouted. The Xirak flagship began to power its outer guns, but too late. Ashfall slammed into its lower docking bay with a thunderous crunch, cracking the hangar open like a shell. The resistance poured in 30 humans armed with plasma rifles, grenades, and rage. Move. Clear the bay. Xirak warriors rushed to respond. Laser fire tore across the decks. Layla ducked behind cover and fired back, dropping 2 lizard-like soldiers. Maya, hiding aboard Ashfall, watched the fight through a small window. Eli led the charge. Get to the command deck. We end this now. Corridor after corridor, the humans advanced, leaving smoke and bodies behind. Every inch was a battle. At the heart of the ship, they reached the reactor chamber. Layla stayed behind with 2 engineers to disable the internal defense systems. You've got 15 minutes, she warned. After that, the ship melts. Eli nodded. That's all we need. He and Nico climbed to the upper deck. There, in a throne of wires and steel, sat the Xirak fleet marshal, taller than any other, with burning violet eyes and a double-bladed plasma spear. You defile this place, the marshal hissed, your insects pretending to be fire. Eli dropped his rifle and drew a blade. We're not pretending. The two clashed. Sparks lit the chamber as metal struck energy. The Xirak marshal was fast and humanly sewed, but Eli was stronger, meaner, and carried the fury of every human who died on Forge 9. The fight was brutal. Eli took a hit to the ribs. Blood ran down his side, but he pressed on, blade flashing. With a final roar, he drove his weapon through the marshal's chest. The alien slumped, hissing his last words. More will come. Eli pulled the blade free. Let them. Behind him, the ship's warning lights flashed. Layla's voice echoed over comms. Cores. Overloading. You've got 3 minutes. Evac route. Back to Ashfall. Hurry. The humans ran. They carried the wounded. Nico covered the rear, blasting turrets and locking bulkheads. When they reached the hangar, Ashfall was already prepping launch. Maya had hot-wired the auto engines. I didn't touch the weapons, she shouted. Layla smiled through the pain. Good girl. It's the last of the resistance boarded. Eli hit the thrusters. As Ashfall blasted out of the dreadnought, the Xirak flagship began to shudder. From the surface of Forge 9, thousands of humans looked up. A crack. A flash. Then the dreadnought exploded. A silent fireball stretched across the sky. Pieces of alien metal rained down like falling stars. People cheered, some wept, others dropped to their knees. For the first time in years, they had struck a real blow. Inside Ashfall, Eli slumped into a seat. Blood still dripped from his arm. Layla sat across from him, smiling weakly. We just killed a god, she said. Eli shook his head. We just reminded them, we're not slaves. The comm system blinked. An incoming message. It wasn't from the Xirak. It was human. Resistance Forces of Forge 9. This is Captain Arlen Voss of the Terran Reclamation Fleet. We received your signal. Reinforcements en route. Estimated arrival, 36 hours. Hold the fire. Eli stared at the screen. They were real. They were coming. He turned to Maya, who looked up at him, eyes wide with awe. We did it, didn't we? She asked. He smiled for the first time in days. We lit the fire. Now the galaxy will feel it. And outside, in the void, among the stars, humanity was no longer silent. The stars trembled from the edge of the Orion Expanse. Hundreds of Xirak ships emerged, sleek destroyers, blood-red battlecruisers, and in the center, the Emperor's personal flagship, the Dread Sun, a vessel large enough to eclipse moons. It was no longer a war, it was extinction. On Forge 9. The survivors watched from the surface as wave after wave of enemy vessels spread across the sky like a tide of knives. For the first time since the rebellion began, silence fell across the resistance. Even children stopped speaking, in the command chamber, beneath the ruins of the old forge spire. Eli Voss stood, wrapped in bandages, held up by sheer will. Beside him stood Layla, still bruised, still strong. Nico calibrated the last anti-orbital guns. Maya held the amplifier mic in her shaking hands. Eli looked at them all. "This is it," Layla nodded. "Final burn." A moment passed. Then Maya spoke. Into the mic. "To any Terran forces. If you can hear this, Forge 9 is still standing. We may not hold long, but we will hold." They didn't wait for a reply. They had no time. Within the hour, Xirak began their final assault. Torpedoes rained from the sky. Plasma fire carved through mountains. Giant beasts were dropped from orbit, towering siege creatures with armored hides and blazing cannons strapped to their backs. The humans answered with everything they had. The last of the Kepler fighters manned the railguns. Civilians hauled explosive charges onto the cliffs. Farmers from the outer zones used mining gear. As weapons, children ran ammo from the wreckage of the World Reaper. Layla had salvaged a working fusion coil. She and Nico turned it into a makeshift beam cannon that could cut through an armored tank in seconds. They named it the Firestorm, and they saved it for the Emperor. On the 6th hour, the dread sun descended into low orbit. The ground cracked. Gravity warped. Sky turned orange. From its lower hatch, the Xirak Emperor emerged. He was monstrous, taller than any soldier. Wrapped in living armor with eyes that pulsed with pure white energy. He floated to the battlefield, surrounded by elite guards. Eli met him at the charred remains of the central ridge. No army. No words. Just him. Holding a scorched Terran flag in one hand and a pulse blade in the other. "You should have died in chains," the Emperor said. Eli didn't flinch. "You should have never taught us how to fight." The Emperor raised a clawed hand and unleashed a blast of force that sent Eli flying. Bones cracked. Blood hit the dirt, but Eli rose. Behind him, the resistance charged. Every fighter, every child, every prisoner. They poured over the ridges, across the plains, into the burning storm, blasting, stabbing, screaming. Humanity had become a firestorm. The sky turned to smoke. The earth glowed. Xirak weapons overheated. The humans didn't stop. Layla activated the beam cannon and targeted the Emperor's guards. The cannon's white-hot stream carved a trench of death through the alien ranks. Nico detonated the final anti-air mines just as another dropship tried to land. It exploded in the clouds, lighting the night like lightning. Maya carried a transmitter into the battle zone. She was just a girl, but her voice held more strength than any blade. "They called us slaves. Now we are the fire. We burn everything." They send. Then the Emperor struck again. He charged through the lines like a meteor, scattering humans like dust. Layla tried to flank him, but was thrown into the rubble. Nico crawled across the field to reach her. Eli dashed broken, bleeding stood. Again, he faced the Emperor one final time. "You think this ends with you?" The Emperor growled. Eli's voice was a whisper. "No, it ends with us." Then, from orbit, a new light. Ships. Hundreds. Terran warships. The reclamation fleet had arrived. With a thunderous scream, the sky split open as battleships, cruisers, and fighters jumped in, weapons hot. Terran artillery pounded the Xirak positions. Drop pods rained down like steel comets filled with Terran. Marines in gleaming armor. The balance shifted. The Xirak faltered. Eli pointed his blade one last time. Now. Layla, bloodied but alive, slammed her palm onto the fusion core's trigger. The Firestorm cannon locked onto the Emperor. A blast of energy, bright as a sun, lanced through the field and struck him full in the chest. The Emperor screamed, his armor shattered, his body crumbled, and then he was gone. The battlefield went still. The remaining Xirak fled. Some tried to retreat into orbit, but the reclamation fleet hunted them down. By dawn, Forge 9 was free. Truly, completely, forever. Eli lay on a cot, barely breathing. Maya sat beside him, holding his hand. Layla stood in the ruined spire, looking out across the plains. Fire still smoked from the hills, but the people stood tall, survivors. Fighters. Freed, a Terran officer approached her. "Ma'am," he said, saluting. "Command wants to know what you call this place now. It's no longer a mining colony." Looked out at the people, children running, warriors resting, medics healing enemies who surrendered. She smiled. "It's called Ashforge," she said. "Where we rose from fire?" The officer nodded. "And the war." She turned. "It's not over, but now. The galaxy knows. And the stars. Fire was born. And when the chains broke, that fire became a storm. Humanity was never the victims. They were the reckoning.
Yes.
And this was just the beginning. The message was clear. Hold the fire. Reinforcements en route. Estimated arrival, 36 hours. But Eli Voss knew better. The Xirak wouldn't wait that long. In orbit, the human-captured ship Ashfall drifted above Forge 9, hiding behind the shattered remains of the dreadnought they've destroyed. Below, the resistance regrouped, but they were running out of time, food, and places to hide. That's when the signal came, crackling, faint, and unexpected. Layla picked it up while tuning the amplifier. "It's a distress beacon," she said, eyes narrowing. "Human code. From Kepler-9." Eli turned sharply. "That's a prison world. Used to be," Nico said. "Now it's a graveyard." Kepler-29 was where the Xirak dumped captured humans. No weapons, no tech, just rocks, electric fences, and nightmares. But this signal was fresh. A voice came through, raspy, desperate, human. "This is Sergeant Lorne. Survivors on Kepler-9. Over 5,000. Xirak patrols inbound. No defenses. Help us." Eli didn't hesitate. "We're going." Layla blinked. "Can't defend Forge 9 and save Kepler at the same time. If we don't move now, those 5,000 are dead." Nico nodded. "And if they live, they become fighters." An hour later, Ashfall jumped to warp. Inside were the best of the resistance. Eli, Layla, Nico, Maya's father, and 30 handpicked soldiers. Maya stayed behind on Forge 9, standing. Beside the amplifier, watching the stars come back, she whispered. Kepler-29 looked worse than they'd imagined. It was gray, cold, and hollow. Prison blocks stretched for miles, most half collapsed. Watchtowers leaned like broken bones. But life still moved. From orbit, they saw groups of humans digging trenches, raising barricades made from scrap and bone. They were preparing for war with nothing. Inside the main prison yard, Sergeant Lorne met them. He was tall, rail-thin, with burns across his face. "We didn't think anyone would answer." "We're not leaving you," Eli said. Lorne's voice was rough. "Then help us hold this place, because the Xirak are coming." An hour later, Xirak ships dropped into Kepler's atmosphere. 6 cruisers, full strike force. Layla turned to Eli. "They followed us." "Good," Eli said. "We'll give them a welcome." The humans on Kepler had no real weapons, only stolen knives and blunt tools. So Eli shared what they brought: pulse rifles, grenades, EMP charges, in the center of the yard. Layla and Lorne worked side by side to create a defense grid using prison wiring and the parts from Ashfall's secondary engine. When the first cruiser landed, the sky turned green with plasma fire. The battle began. Xirak troops stormed the gates, hissing commands, firing energy blasts. But the humans held the walls. Eli and Nico moved between defense lines, pushing back waves with borrowed firepower. In the West Tower, Layla triggered an EMP burst that knocked out a gunship mid-flight. It crashed into the mountain ridge, exploding in a blaze. The ground shook. Maya's father was hit by falling debris but kept firing, bleeding from his leg. Sergeant Lorne took a spear to the side but refused to fall. "We don't go down here," he growled, pressing a plasma torch to his own wound. The Xirak didn't expect such resistance. They assumed these were weak, broken prisoners. But prisoners had nothing left to fear, and when fear dies, fire lives at sunrise. The last Xirak cruiser lifted off and retreated. One of their commanders screamed in frustration as his troops abandoned the field. The humans roared in victory. Over 5,000 prisoners had survived, and now They were soldiers. As the wounded were cared for, Eli looked over the field. Burned. Fences, collapsed towers, bodies of both sides. Layla stood beside him, bruised and dirty. We can't stay here. No, Eli agreed, but we can take them with us. Where? He looked up. Home. They loaded Ashfall with the worst wounded and called in scavenged shuttles left behind by the Xirak, Lorne's people. Leaders in their own right, to organize teams and supplies. In 2 days, they were airborne. Kepler 2-9 burned behind them. It's empty at last. But in the dark of space, a warning waited. As Ashfall neared Forge 9 again, alarms blared. Layla's voice turned sharp. There's a Xirak mothership inbound.
Eli!
Leaned forward the Emperor, or someone worse. Scans confirmed it. The Tarvik-class World Reaper ship so large it had its own gravity field. Capable of destroying a planet with a single shot, the Xirak weren't playing games anymore. They were coming to finish Forge 9 for good. On the surface, Maya watched the sky turn silver. She grabbed the amplifier and sent a final message into the stars. This is Maya from Forge 9. We held the fire. Now we burn brighter. Come fast, or it all goes dark. In orbit, Eli stood on the bridge of Ashfall, watching the giant ship close in. Behind him were ships filled with new warriors. Beside him stood fighters forged in loss and rage. Ahead of him was annihilation, and maybe ovation. He whispered one word, ready. The sky over Forge 9 was no longer black. It was silver and burning. The Xirak Tarvik-class World Reaper loomed above the planet like a god, bigger than any ship humanity had ever faced. It swallowed the stars, humming with power, preparing to fire its main weapon. Eli Voss stood on the command deck of Ashfall, staring at it in silence. We're out of time, Layla said behind him. They'll glass the surface in minutes. Then we strike now, Eli replied. Didn't shake. In the hangars across Forge 9, Resistance fighters loaded stolen weapons onto shuttles. The survivors from Kepler 9, still wounded, still limp, and joined them. Prisoners became soldiers. Farmers became gunners. Children carried ammo crates. Above them, Maya clutched the amplifier mic. Her voice echoed across every comms unit. This is Forge 9. We are not afraid. We are not alone. We are the fire they couldn't kill. And then, they launched. Over 20 makeshift assault shuttles broke atmosphere, streaking through the clouds toward the enemy ship. Ashfall led the charge. The World Reaper didn't react at first. Then its auto-defense systems woke up, turrets rotated, plasma storms flared, and a net of deadly fire opened across the sky. One shuttle exploded immediately. Another spun out of control and slammed into a rock spire. Still, the humans kept going. Inside Ashfall, Nico screamed coordinates. Their main guns are charging. We need to punch through now. Layla locked eyes with Eli. There's a weak point. The thermal vents near the underbelly. If we fly into them, we can overload the core. We won't survive that run, Nico said flatly. Eli stared ahead, breathing deep. We don't have to. Just one of us does. They broke formation. Ashfall dove low, headed straight for the glowing vents beneath the Reaper. Ships followed the secondary plan boarding. In brutal silence, human squads landed on the outer decks of the massive vessel. They drilled through holes, blasted doors open, and flooded the inside like fire through a dry forest. The Xirak responded in force. Roaring beasts with armored scales, burning blades, and rage. But the humans didn't fall. Not this time. They had nowhere else to go, and nothing more to lose. In the reactor chamber, a squad led by Lorne and Layla planted stolen Xirak bombs. 2 minutes to overload, Layla shouted. We have to get to the core vents. It'll push the explosion into a chain reaction. Meanwhile, Ashfall was flying straight into the beast's mouth. We're in range, Nico said. But if we go any closer, we go through, Eli said. He turned the engines to max and pushed Ashfall into the vent shaft. Metal scraped. Fire blazed around the hole. Warnings screamed. The ship roared like it was alive. Inside, Maya's voice came faintly over the speaker. "Come home, Eli," he smiled sadly, and everything went white. A second later, the reactor bombs detonated. The World Reaper shuddered. Inside its massive hull, the power grid failed. Fire tore through the fuel lines. The internal structure cricked hand then, like a dying star, the ship exploded. From the ground, Forge 9 saw the sky go bright. A silver sun bloomed above the clouds raining fire, twisted steel and glowing debris. The World Reaper was no more. But Ashfall was gone too. Everyone on the surface held their breath. Then, in the distance, one small escape pod burst through. The smoke. Inside, barely alive, was Eli Voss. They dragged him from the wreckage hours later. His face was scorched, his armor melted, but his eyes were open. Maya was the first to reach him. "He came back," she said, crying. "Told." "You," Eli whispered. "We're not done yet." Behind him, the fires burned in the sky like banners. Forge 9 had survived, Kepler's prisoners had risen, and humanity had made the stars bleed. But something else was coming. Layla stood on the shattered deck of the World Reaper's remains, staring at a terminal screen still glowing with Xirak script. She tapped a few keys. A translation scrolled. Transmission sent. Emperor inbound. Full cleansing force ordered. Her face turned pale. She looked up at the stars. "They're bringing everything."